It'll be out tomorrow.
She made the statement. The car was flying over the house. Come on. Come on.
That was so funny.
This is after I sat there for 4 hours, like just stoical.
Exactly.
I'm not saying a word.
Exactly.
That guy. Yep.
Not the current trend. No, that was.
Okay. All right, everyone, it's 5:30, so we'll go ahead and get started with the City Council special meeting for Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. We have 3 items on the agenda, and the first one is a discussion regarding 3 unrelated persons in residential zoning. A long-time policy and issue in Norman, so we have Planning Director Jane Hudson here to talk about it with us.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So we're here tonight to go over what we actually talked about at Community Planning and Transportation back in March, I think is when it was. I don't remember exactly. But this item is actually planned to go before Planning Commission next week. And so when we do have ordinance changes, I'd just like to come back to you one more time before you hear it on Planning Commission. And then you guys will obviously see this in upcoming meetings. So just a brief summary of what we went over previously. The 3 unrelated definition has been part of the zoning ordinance since 1954. The complaints that you do get from your constituents are generally about traffic, parking, and noise. The city addresses occupancy to help ensure health and safety of the residents and to protect the quality and character of the neighborhoods. That's our main concern. Life safety obviously is number 1. So we've had many people ask why eliminate this. We say ordinance, but technically it's really the definition of family that we're looking at, but it is in the zoning code, so this is going to be an ordinance amendment. And, you know, many of the discussions were about the cities that are facing the housing crisis, the rising housing costs over the past several decades. It's been a huge discussion for many, many years. Removing this or updating this definition, it would allow a greater flexibility and affordability in housing choices. More often, I mean, to refer back to the COVID, things have changed greatly since that time. And so we are seeing many seeking to live in cooperative housing, roommates, and right now, the way we have it set up, many of those housing structures, they're discriminated against under this current occupancy limit. We have low income who can't afford to live on their own and they struggle to find existing market rate affordable housing choices. So they try to cohabitate and share the rent, and sometimes we end up with 4 or 5, and then that really does reflect back on this definition of family. And I think probably one of the things, and I talked to you about this last time, was the enforcement of this is difficult. It falls back on the individual that's calling in. They call into code compliance, and it requires a large amount of staff time to research and administer. It's difficult to prove the family relations. We've been through this many, many times over the years, and we run into that every time. As I said, the neighbors that call in, they're asked to spend time completing the investigation. We need logs of vehicles, tag numbers, dates, times, and it becomes a task. And it also creates an issue between them and the individual that they're, watching and reporting on, right? And so also this, impacts specific groups, as I've kind of gone over, but we have multi-generational, low-income houses, and then we also have the students. We are a college town. And to go back, it's frustrating to the residents that call in and think that, we can just immediately do something about this, and it takes time, and then sometimes it's not even something that we can take to court and get enforced. And so that's disappointing for them, and I get that. Again, the number of complaints, in 2023, we had a total of 19. None resulted in citations. They were either closed due to insufficient evidence or the property owner provided proof of compliance. 2024, we had 8. Same thing, ended up in municipal court, but the remaining cases were closed due to insufficient evidence. And then in 2025, we've had one, and it's my understanding that case is still active, or has it been closed? Do we know?
I believe it might have been closed due to
Closed.
insufficient evidence.
Okay. So considerations to changes, the family definition is utilized within the code, included the zoning district. And the code was adopted in 1954, so we do think that it is outdated. Does it solve an issue? Probably. But there's also other city codes that could help alleviate some of the problems, because like I said, the complaints that we get are parking, noise, party houses disturbing the peace. And so we do have other ordinances in place that we can take care of some of those issues should they become a problem. Our existing definition of family, I won't read all of that to you, but I will show you what our proposal is. Family means a single family comprised of one of the following. It's a number of persons cohabitating in a single dwelling and includes a group home. So we've kept the group home so that doesn't fall between the cracks and we lose any of those abilities there. We also have to change one thing in the dwelling unit, so that's why this is on here. It's included in the ordinance change as we move forward. And it's that last statement referring to the quasi-unit quarters. And so the definition would just be removing that last statement that we had here. So that's all I have for you. This will be on Planning Commission next week. And then we will see you at council for a vote, probably January.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And Councilmember Grant?
I'm supportive, as I said in the previous committee, but we're special. And so right now I've got a historic district that's upset with student housing, old houses being converted into student housing. And then another neighborhood, not a historic district, somebody's by right turning a garage into another room, and that is potentially gonna be 5 students also there. And both areas think that the 3 unrelated rule will help them. And I don't think it will, but when we talk about some of these pressures that are in different neighborhoods, and this is like luxury student housing, this is not something that's like they're poor and they need to split 5 bedrooms in a house. What mechanisms could we give those residents to address those specific issues about that type of housing?
So I think it would fall back to, and I'm not familiar with the cases, but, or the areas. But I think that they would be looking at if there's parking issues, nuisance house, nuisance parties, littering, disturbing the peace, et cetera. They could always call in and PD can come out and discuss with the residents any of the issues or concerns that they might have. I know that we have people that call code and again, have complaints and such. And I know it's not always the solution when you reach out to the property owner that is renting these properties to students and such. But I think that that's really one of the first places to start and let them know that the adjacent property owners are having a problem with the tenants that are living there. And should that not be a solution, then again, I think that we would go back and we would tell them, if you feel like this is a nuisance house, we need to have something that's, a record with PD that they're causing a problem in the neighborhood.
Questions, comments? I've often had that same kind of view of it, is that we have existing city ordinances and ways to address noise and parking and trash. And just a blanket ban on more than 3 people living together. And why 3? Why not 4? Why not 2? It's always seemed arbitrary to me and a relic of 1954, whatever the motivation may have been then. But one single person living next door to you can be an awful neighbor. Right? They could park on the grass and have trash and have parties. I recently lived next door to 6 students. There was a big house next door, and never had any problems with them for 2 years. No bad parking, no parties, no trash. They were very respectful, and that's not always the case, we know. But it's just like, there were 6 of them, they didn't cause any problems. I've had a neighbor before who was just one person, it was real problematic. So I've just always felt that it was the rationale for it, I can understand about those issues, but that we have other existing ways to address those specific things. Instead of just saying that nobody over 3 people can live here, well, if there's trash being left out, we can do something about that. If there's cars parking on the grass, we can do something about that. If people want to get rid of street parking, which I don't think you should do because it helps slow down traffic on the street, but if that's an issue, you can petition to have parking removed from the street. So I think and then noise, of course, if there's a nuisance house, if there's noise violations, I think there's ways to address that are probably going to be faster than this process of investigation and all this. So, and just given the numbers of cases that are filed but dismissed because there's no evidence, it's pretty telling to me as well.
And staff just reminded me, I had forgotten about this, but we do get these calls. Code gets these calls, legal gets these calls. And one of the things that they're working on is essentially an FAQ sheet of, the reason is we had a neighbor call in. There's a new tenant next door. It's 4 college students. They didn't know when trash pickup was. They didn't know about water bills. They didn't know about polycarts. They didn't know these, guidelines that they need to follow. And so staff has been working on an FAQ sheet that we hope to have online. Again, it's not a solution to concerns that neighbors are having in the sense of they need to call in for PD. Definitely that's what they need to do. But if this is something that will help them, we had this one lady, the one that we're making this, in response to her is, she said that the kids didn't even know when the trash needed to be picked up. And so she's really kind of being a mentor to them and helping them to, it's the first time they're living on their own.
Well, and like you said, ideally the property owner can
Right,
educate their tenants on those things.
Right.
And if there's some communication. Councilmember Graham?
I'll just say in that particular instance, communication is broken down and they're no longer having
Oh,
a
really?
very low-key barbecue to welcome the students because they're mad about the other 5-bedroom house. And they tried to reach out to that property owner and talk to the lawyer who was not helpful. So it's a little bit of a quagmire over there. But my other thought was when we previously discussed this, we said that we would keep in provisions for safety. And so I think some of the concern for residents is if you have 5 students in a house, is that really 10? And then my question would be, when is it too many people for fire code in a 5-bedroom house?
Well, and I would add to that, how is it relevant if they're family or not, by a legal definition? So if you have parents and they have 9 kids and there's 11 people in a 4-bedroom house, is that illegal in Norman? It's only illegal if you're not related under our definition of what a family is.
the current, correct.
So it just, again, I know this law has never been challenged in court, but it's always felt like to me that it was flimsy if it ever really did get pushed to.
And as far as building code, they can have several,
Yeah.
a lot.
I would say at that point, if it's a car issue, it would be code enforcement or parking enforcement, that there's like 10 cars at a house.
And again, if they're not parking on the grass and they're legally parked in the street, then they're compliant.
If you're
Then
good.
again, they might shut down one side of the street. I'm just thinking
Right.
about like all the things, all the conversations I've had with different neighborhoods that are just at their wits' end with either Airbnbs or people who are outside investors buying houses and turning neighborhoods into student housing. So it's a real frustration, again, I'm supportive of this because I also see the flip side where it's people who can't afford to live on their own otherwise, all teaming up so that they can, and I mean business owners that have businesses downtown. Like they rent a house and there are 4 of them there. So I definitely respect the affordability component, but there's this other stuff that maybe some of it will be addressed through parking and noise and trash, but yeah, the frustration's there, and I know they're listening tonight, so.
Yeah, we would definitely have to be adequately enforcing the existing ordinances, which I know we enforce them, but, and again, if that could possibly get the issue addressed faster than this whole process does, that would be a big deal. Councilmember Bruce?
I really haven't done my homework on this, I'm sorry, but I'm doing it. So 3 unrelated persons. So 4 is too many, unrelated 5 is too many, is that what the word is basically? You can have 3, but 4 is too many, 5 is too many.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Per the ordinance itself, that's the definition that we've had since 1954. We have single-family homes in single-family neighborhoods that have 4 bedrooms. So, and we've had areas that, we look at requiring a special use if they have more than 3 bedrooms. But it's, what becomes the negative impact, to the people that are trying to live there, to the people that are trying to rent, and keeping it at 3, it's an obscure number.
So let's say I had $1 million house and I want to rent it out, maybe a country for 3 years. So there's no limit on dollar value of the house, and I could have 10 people in there. Let me ask you this, if I had a house and I wanted to convert it to a boarding house, what would I have to do with the city? What type of codes would I have to do with the city? I want to have a business, I'm having a boarding house.
Boarding house is a different use.
Yeah, so that would, is it a special use?
It depends on the district.
Yeah, so it would depend on the district, we'd have to look and see. But it would probably be a rezoning request for special use. And again, if you're in regular R1 district.
So if I had $1 million house and I put it on the market, and here comes an attorney coming and say, hey, I want to rent your house to make it my second house. I mean, just thinking through that.
So rooming house, Janita was just saying like a rooming house has to have a
Special
like a house mom or a house director on site.
Resident manager or something like that.
Right.
That is also an old ordinance.
I can see the sensitivity in certain neighborhoods and certain additions, given the size of the house and the size of the land associated with the house, and you have 1 and 3, I can imagine the other neighbors would say, hey, that might be too much.
Boarding house is not allowed in R1, even with special use.
Unless it's an Oxford house
Well, that's
a
totally
different-
different,
yeah,
that's
it's a
totally
different
different,
use.
yeah,
allowed by
that's federal,
federal
right?
law.
I think you have to be in R3 to even get into.
Special use. That's not there either.
Yeah, boarding house or rooming houses in R3 is special use.
36,558.
Oxford houses, yes.
I just don't know how many of those are in Nome. That might be an option for affordability for folks. I'm just,
Are there boarding houses? How many there are?
All those are sorts of.
Do you inspect them still?
We only have one structure on Dean's Road that was previously the women's shelter. All the others are sororities and fraternities.
Okay. So we only, did you hear, only have one that was on Dean's Road, the rest of them are fraternities and sororities for boarding house.
is what they fall under.
And Dean's Row is like.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilor Bruce?
No, I just need to do a little bit more homework, a little more understanding.
Any other, Councilor Gansberg?
I'd just like to say that I definitely favor this, last couple of meetings that we've had, last night's deal with the standard and everything that some of us was able to attend. We're talking more and more about people utilizing smaller spaces to get more accomplished and to not increase the footprint within the town as much as absolutely necessary. And, I truly believe that if somebody has a 4 or 5 bedroom house and, especially how, Councilwoman Grant now saying, 4 business people together on one house, that is, to me, that's an amazing type of situation there. All that money and stuff that's staying in our economy, but only utilizing so much.
Okay, any other comments, questions, council about this? So, okay, planning commission in December, you said?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, okay. Okay, so in front of council, and we only have one meeting in December, so January.
Probably January.
Okay, all right, if there's no further questions or comments about this subject, look forward to seeing that come back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, ladies.
And then item number 2 is a discussion regarding a proposed bond election for a women's shelter.
Wanted to touch base with council. Handful of years ago, council had a series of ballot questions. One of those ballot questions had to do with funding for the construction of a permanent shelter facility. And it was a very hot topic at the time the conversation started. We had some other ballot questions preparing to move before the voters. And council took the opportunity to add a question about voter support for a $5 million pot of money to build a permanent shelter facility. At the time that conversation happened, we did not know where. We did not know what it would look like or how it would function. We did not know who would operate such a facility. And as vague a concept as the question was, I think it received about 48% voter support with a less than complete picture, and we understood that at the time the question was being posed. Mrs. Walker put together the ordinance that council adopts to put a thing on a ballot. And as our conversations advance with the State Department of Mental Health and OMES about a site on Griffin land for potential permanent shelter location, some of those questions we couldn't answer before, answers are becoming clear. And we know we've got an opportunity for ballot in February and or April. I wanted to have a short conversation with council to see if there was interest in bringing such an ordinance forward, maybe on the same ballot as other questions council may wish to advance. With more clarity, this time the question would go out on a piece of land we'll be able to identify on a map with a site plan that we would be able to identify, and with potential operators that we would be able to identify, and obviously help educate the public as to what that question means long-term for shelter services in Norman. So fortunately, Mrs. Walker has that ordinance on her hard drive and was able to provide copies for council just to refresh everybody's memory. And now that I'm thinking, that may even be before Councilmember Peacock and Councilmember Grant's. You were on that one.
Fresh.
So it's been a while. Only our most seasoned veterans remember that particular conversation, but it may be time for reconsideration of the concept. So obviously don't need all the details worked out, but just looking to see if there was consensus for council to consider such a question on a ballot in the not too distant future.
Councilmember Grant?
I'm supportive And I would also like to see if we could get some surveys, just to feel out how people, I feel like they'll have support, but it'd just be nice to have some data that says actually, you know, this is exactly where Norman would like to see this kind of resource. I do think having a budget, location, a provider, all that will go a long ways, but it would just be nice to know if that actually does bear out in the responses.
We've had in conversation with the folks at City Care about long-range plans. They've recently built facilities in Oklahoma City with the design to provide overnight services as well as day services and laundry and kenneling space available. And they are working on a site plan for such a concept regarding a piece of property on Griffin land. And there is an opportunity with a one-time investment to reduce over time ongoing support for shelter operations. Our friends at City Care have a high degree of confidence in their ability to fundraise on an annual basis to cover the lion's share of maintenance and operations cost related to a new facility, obviously in a preferred location, designed specifically for the purpose that it was built for. So it could absolutely be seen as an investment that could return nicely to the general fund of the city of Norman.
Councilor Pico?
Yeah, just, as City Manager Pyle alluded to, Mayor Holden and I were the only holdovers from the last time we tried this. And, I hear a lot of comments about how residents already voted on this, they voted it down, so we don't want it. But I'd like to remind people that at that same vote, they also voted down the Senior Wellness Center, additions to the WIFAC, improvements to Ruby Grant, improvements to Reeves Park, Parks Maintenance Facility. And if I remember right, there was even a small business support fund on that vote during COVID, which was also voted down. So to say that we don't want
Remodel
this.
of the police department was on there
That
too.
was also on there. So there was a lot of great projects that were on there that were also voted down, with the homeless shelter being the only one that nearly passed. And so to say that we voted it down, we don't want it, I would argue that we want a lot of the things on the list that were voted down. And so I am not willing to put all my eggs in that basket. That I think we should take another stab at it and see if voters have a different change of opinion, especially now that we have a lot of the details filled in. So I'm supportive as well. Just want to mention that.
Well, we have, yes, that proposition was put together very quickly in response partly to COVID and the anticipation that this issue could cause an increase in homelessness, and it has. But no location, no design, no plans, no budget for operation, really. And so we were 2 years in, we had operated the shelter out of the old library at that point for
Yep.
two winters. And so we were just really asking for a $5 million check to figure it out later. And so I am supportive of putting forward a proposal that has an identified location, has identified budget, doesn't have to be completely designed, but just a very basic conceptual, this is what it would look, how much space it would take up, what services it actually is providing, the service provider,
And not in downtown.
not downtown, and close to existing services ideally. All of those things I think would have made a difference then, and if we have those details now, would make a difference. And then we can get into about how much it would be, but also, is it just by itself? Because I've definitely floated the idea of a public safety bond that includes fire, police, and a shelter. And fire being, I thought about how could we fund the 3 new fire stations that the public safety study talks about. But the easy part there would be building them. How we staff those stations is another issue that I'm not certain about. But we know that Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2 both need to be rebuilt. Fire Station 1 for sure, it's undersized, does twice as many calls as all the other stations, and it's the oldest one. And so if we were able to build a new Fire Station 1 and maybe Ann's fire admin, we need a new police department. We have interest in the land of where the police department currently sits for development. That building is old and outdated. It would cost a lot of money to remodel that many would say is not worth that and would be better just building a new one. And so those three things, shelter, fire station, police station, all public safety issues. I view homelessness as a public safety matter. So that's just something to consider if we wanted to do something like that, or if it's standalone by itself, or if it's coupled with those two other things, or whatever, and when. If we think it's something that could be put together by April, and do how many things do we want to put on the ballot in April? Charter amendments and street maintenance bond, etc. So those are all things that have been on my mind about this. Councilmember Grant?
Oh, actually,
Or-
Councilmember Hinkle.
Oh yeah, Hinkle.
I agree with that. I think I would be more comfortable if this were lumped into a lot of, not a lot, but some other things too. I also view this as a public safety concern, but I'm also not opposed to it being a standalone something if it's done the right way. So my question with it being a general obligation bond, if we're issuing debt that we'd have to service, is this something that we're gonna have to pay out of the general fund to service?
No, sir.
Okay.
And what it sounds like, there may be interest in polling this a couple of different flavors to see if we can bring you back a package that we believe the community sees as most palatable. Whether it's one question with several line items in it or separate questions. But I think we can probably gather good data polling what the package looks like.
Councilmember Grant?
Yeah, I'm more in favor of standalone, just thinking that there could be two other things on the ballot with it as well, and then also thinking about the history. But that might be one of those things where if we're surveying, we could find out if people would support all of them together under a public safety bond. Just my thoughts on how to put those together.
Councilmember Gansberry?
This was definitely one of the big ticket items during my running for election, everything when I was out talking to my constituents and things. And I feel like it's a very, very high need right now for our community. I believe that especially with the federal government, the way it's looking right now, and SNAP benefits and all of our neighbors out helping neighbors right now, it just kind of reminds us the importance of helping others. And this is our way of kind of giving back to that. But with you mentioning also kind of lumping maybe police and fire into that, I definitely would be supportive of if we could lump in somehow getting a new fire department out by 36, like on their wish list to help with those times and response times to get under 5 minutes.
Southeast 36.
Yes, sir, to get under that 5-minute response time that they've been really, really trying for and everything along with it. But with us having an election coming up and everybody besides me and Kim out there knocking doors, it's a perfect time for us to be mentioning as we're campaigning out there about it, the importance of this for our community.
Yeah, and like I said about building a new fire station, just the staffing part of it, and where do we come up with the funding to staff that station?
And just for your conversations, door knocking, fire station construction, 7 million-ish for a building, $1.5 million for the vehicles, and about $1.5 million a year to keep the bodies in it. So just numbers for your pocket.
But yeah, we do know that according to the assessment, we will need 3 new stations in the next 20 years or so. Councilmember Blodgett?
I just wanted to say, kind of piggybacking off what Gansberry said, but when I was running and I was out campaigning, people were calling me that were not from Ward 7, but were business owners downtown. And they just were like, I see you're running. I need you to know that this is my major concern. And so I think that we'll have a lot more buy-in this time because it was a lot. And even after I was elected, I had some business owners from downtown call me and say, hey, congratulations that you were elected, but I need, like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, this is a problem. So, I'm 1,000% supportive of it and just wanted to say that I think that this time there'll be a lot more buy-in.
Councilor Peacock?
Yeah, I mean, just to that point, I think that the sooner we can get it on a ballot, the better. And so like, I want to take the time to gauge, resident sentiment and all that and make sure the question's structured right. But I also don't want to miss an opportunity where everybody's very motivated to find a solution, a long-term solution. And so I think we need to get it to voters as quick as possible.
Councilor Grant?
Yes, I was, to that point, I think April is a good time to get it out.
Okay, Councilmember Bruce?
Got a learning opportunity for me. So the homeless shelter community facility, so when we say the term homeless shelter, do we mean emergency shelter or, what's the, mission creep? What is the vision for that homeless shelter?
Councilmember Bruce, that concept has evolved pretty dramatically since 2019 when we operated what was deemed the emergency shelter in the former Central Library, now the Development Center. We put it together in about 8 days on a shoestring budget to provide some indoor spaces for folks to come in and crash on a mat from November through March. Over a few evolutions of where the service would be provided, there was recognition that we actually have more people die of exposure in the summertime than we do in the wintertime. And that mission grew to a 12-month shelter scenario. And now what we're seeing in neighboring agencies, it's one thing to provide care at night so your people are not sleeping exposed, but to actually try to change their course in life, the ability to provide day services and housing assistance and job counseling and help them recover documents they need to be successful in securing work, like I can't find my birth certificate or I don't have a social security card. Those are the kinds of services that get provided during the day. Our current provider in City Care, these are services that they have been providing in Oklahoma City for a long time now with a good track record, been on board with us since January. And they recognize the demand for service and their inability to really solve problems on an individual basis because at 7 a.m. we send them out the door and close it behind them.
Just a follow-up. So when you have this continuum of care, and you have all these NPAs that are out there, and they have their own roles and their own missions, and then you have this need that's a flexible need depending on the individual for segue into one of those NPAs for additional assistance. So that requires a little thought how this homeless shelter is going to operate. Does that make sense?
It does. In the continuum of care, we have 40 agencies in the Cleveland County continuum of care. Only 2 of those agencies state homelessness in their core mission. So although a lot of our other agencies may touch on aspects of our homeless population, the focus on just addressing the needs of the homeless boils down to food and shelter in the Salvation Army. And now the folks at City Care have added to it. So the mission is not as broad when we think about it from the continuum of care perspective. Some of those agencies do provide some support service, drug and alcohol counseling, behavioral health services. Those may be aspects that the continuum of care helps support, but literally 3 in Cleveland County that say homelessness is our mission.
Councilor
Wow, I
Dixon?
just say, wow, the 40, 40, and there's only 2 that offer.
Yeah, yes, the sad part.
Councilor Dixon?
I was just gonna say, I support this. I voted yes for the last City Care budget for our shelter here on Gray Street. I think City Care does a fantastic job. They're not just housing people, they're actually finding them housing. Really like it. I hope there's enough time to really educate everybody, just the residents in Norman, about this. I'm just a little worried. It's a little short, and if it doesn't pass, then we can't say, well, we didn't, it was just 5 million with kind of trust us, we'll figure it out later. We've got a plan, we've got an operator currently that's doing a great job. That's the only worry I have, and it might be unfounded, but I would like to see it on the ballot.
And when does the April ballot?
January is when
when
you'd
we
be
have to
voting.
vote on
First and second reading in January. A couple of things I want to point out about this particular question that we did last time. It was asked under a particular section of the Constitution that requires just a simple majority vote. You can do this for any public facility, which is a facility for the public good, basically, or public use. And it has to be owned exclusively by the city for the duration. So I just wanted to make sure that was out there. The other question, I think, is when you talk about it being a separate question, are you talking about it being a separate question on the same ballot as the other questions, or potentially a ballot of its own? Sounds like April to me, but.
I think, and let everybody else can tune in or chime in, but that if it were to be by itself, that would just mean that we have charter amendments, street maintenance bond, and a single question about funding.
And potentially, the public safety question would be a separate question if you asked it at that time.
I would look at shelter, fire station, police station being a single ballot question.
Okay.
Because one single public safety bond to fund 3 facilities. For construction of fire, and I'm just, maybe it includes 2 states, I don't know, but
And
just
those
for
are all
discussion's
asked under
sake,
the same section of the Constitution, so they can definitely be combined.
replace the replace the police department, replace Fire Station 1, and build a shelter. That we would own, the city would own the building. I envision the city owning a building and leasing that out for $1, I don't know. But that provider operates the service, and through time, the city doesn't have to not contribute anything to operating it, but that the amount that the city, right now, all of it, is whittled down to where we provide the building, we provide, and we do like our other facilities where we do the
I
utilities.
was gonna say, it's a very similar structure to a lot of our other facilities that are managed by nonprofits or
But
other
operations
agencies.
being through the
Healthy
nonprofit
living.
that fundraises and does it themselves, ideally. So, Councilor Peacock, oh wait, actually, Councilor Gansberry, Peacock, and then.
Kind of piggybacking on Councilor Blodgett again and everything, with her talking about the businesses. I know personally, and I feel like most of us at the table have been in the room and at meetings with the Norman Chamber of Commerce and heard their upper management talk about how great they think it would be for a permanent homeless shelter of some kind in a nice area that's made for that specific need, and to be able to move Gray Street away from the downtown main. So I would challenge basically all of our business community and all of our chamber members to kind of just take a deep dive into this for themselves, see what kind of solutions are out there, and possibly be able to back this.
Councilor Peacock?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm in support of a PSST question where it lumps in all 3 of the projects together.
Now, a public safety sales tax question or a
Public safety bond question.
public safety bond?
Yeah,
Okay.
the police,
The
fire, shelter.
PSST thing is another
Yeah, sorry.
Another
question.
Yeah,
I don't think
too
we're
used to
ready
the acronyms. Yeah, I would be in favor of that, but just again, saying like, if we do lump police and fire in it, I don't wanna drag the timeline out, a year trying to get those projects perfect. I mean, I feel like we've got this one, we need to move forward with this one. If we can get the other 2 in a timely fashion, integrated into a question, I would support that.
I would think if we can identify where new police department and where new fire station 1 go, and that, I don't know that we have to have a design for them, but where are they going? How much do they cost,
Budget
obviously?
location.
Budget location for those 2. And then Councilor Dixon, and then.
I was just gonna say, can the language be, so that, maybe Parks and Rec could build a temporary building that's not gonna be, the end result of what the bond money would build for the shelter, but we could get people in that quicker than we could, some kind of a metal building, get them out of Gray Street into that with the knowing that we're definitely not gonna tear down that building whenever the brick and mortar, is built, and then that original temporary building could be repurposed as storage, dog kennels. Is there,
Yeah, as long as the building's going to be utilized for a public utility under
Okay.
that constitutional provision, I think that's probably fine. It's something we'll be clear about in the education piece. And it would be included in that dollar figure.
Just thought I saw both of you put them up at the same time.
I would just ask that if we do not have fire and police identified by January, that we're still going ahead with the shelter portion and putting it on by itself.
Yeah, that can be done. That question is actually the easiest because we
The
just
lion's
use what
share
we've
is
written
done.
before. We'll update our numbers, so that can be done pretty quickly.
Councilman.
I just wanted to say that I actually think it's brilliant to include police and fire in it, because a lot of people that are in big support of police are not in big support of the homeless. So if we could bring those people in because they see the benefit for the police and fire, I think that that would benefit it more.
And any thoughts on if that package can't be put together moving forward in April with just that standalone question? I mean,
Yes.
along with charter and et cetera, but if it's
Yes.
just a shelter. And
But I think we'll learn a ton from Councilmember Grant's idea to survey and poll people.
yes, and if staff can see, about the fire
The scope,
station one.
absolutely.
The other question that we'll face out there is that Fire Station 5, there's a project to replace it that was approved by voters in the PSST Part 2. And paying off the radio system and the Emergency Operations Center have been the holdup on Fire Station 5 replacement. And so we've talked about it somewhat recently, and it's, I think, as soon as those are paid off, 2027, March of 2027 is when the radio and EOC, I guess, are paid off. That frees up the PSST funds to do Fire Station 5. But that'll be a question is, why should we vote for replacing Fire Station 1 if number 5 hasn't been replaced yet? But that would be the reason why, is that that's a sales tax based, and you have to pay off these other big ticket items before they could do Station 5. And Station 5 is the last of the PSST capital projects that'll be completed. So just throwing it out there because that may be a question you get as to why we should or shouldn't do this. Any other questions or comments about this subject?
Our direction is clear. Thank you, council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 3 is a consideration of adjourning into an executive session as authorized by Oklahoma statutes under Title 25, 307B3 to discuss the possible purchase of real property on the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse property between Alameda and Main Street.
So moved.
Need a motion to adjourn, so moved, and a second, okay. Do I need to signify by raising, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yep.
You wanna take a break for a few minutes? Yeah, 5 minutes.
Say Josh.
I like how you did
Between food and shelter.